and I saw him at our hometown bar and had a few too many glasses of wine, enough to walk up to him, tap him on the shoulder, and I asked him, "Do you remember me?" And he said no.
You want to look yourself in the mirror and be proud of who's looking back at you, and you see. And for me, for a long time, I couldn't do that. I was pretending that I was proud of who I was seeing in the mirror.
Take a girl and a guy, and they fall madly in love and form a family. Sprinkle in some counseling degrees and a doctorate, a dream of transforming relationships as we know it. And 20 years later, we give you power couple Dr. Ray and Jean Katkodian. And this is their podcast, Couples Synergy.
Welcome back to another episode of Couples Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean. Hi, I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Jean, and this is our podcast about love, marriage, and relationships.
Please check us out online on our Facebook page and Instagram at Couples Synergy, or our website, couplesynergy.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast or send us any suggestions on topics you'd like to hear more about. And now on to Couples Synergy, an in-depth look at love, marriage, and relationships, where we bring you our experience helping thousands of couples transform their relationships for over 20 years.
You know, every day we get to hear intimate details about a couple's celebrations, disappointments, and everyday challenges. We've often wished these stories were shared because we know we are more similar than different. So we've created not only an avenue where you can hear about people's intimate lives, but an atmosphere where people come over to our home pub, pour a drink, and share their stories.
People like today's guests, Nick and Michelle, thank you so much for being on our podcast today.
Oh, thank you guys for having us.
Before we get into your story, I mean, we have to make mention here of Jean's voice here. I think it's a little, there's a little frog there.
Yeah, little froggy.
Little froggy, right. I love it. Very cute. So, guys, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves? How old are you? What do you do for a living? And how long have you been together? I'm going to throw another question your way, a curveball. What's the most interesting thing that the two of you have experienced together?
All right, I'll start. I'm Michelle, and I am 34 years old. I am a teacher.
I'm Nick. I am also 34, and I have my own little small consulting business in defense and aerospace.
How long have you guys been together?
Oh, we've been together for,
Been married for 9 years.
8 years, almost 9. In this month.
Yeah, you're right.
And we have been dating since 2009. And I think the most interesting thing we've done, probably we went to Banff pre-COVID, and we swam in a freezing
glacier-fed lake.
Yeah.
Just jumped in.
Those are cold.
It was so cold.
I just watched our video of us doing that on the John Muir Trail.
On the John Muir Trail, yeah.
Freezes.
It was freezing.
Can you guys tell us the story of how you met?
Sure. I can talk about this one. It started in 8th grade. In freshman year, I used to go to Nick's house for confirmation prep classes. His parents were my teachers. So we would sit in his family room and learn about getting ready to be confirmed. And we didn't talk ever. I used to think he was really cute from across.
We just shared glances
from across the room, but I was super shy, and
I was embarrassed that this was happening at my house.
So we didn't end up actually speaking until 2009, right? When we saw each other. I had just finished my degree. I was starting to teach, and we were in our hometown, and Nick was home from New Orleans. He was going to school down there and subbing. And I saw him at our hometown bar, that pizza place that turned into bar at night, and had a few too many glasses of wine, enough to walk up to him, tap him on the shoulder. He's a pretty tall...
On the chest.
Yeah,
I was watching you walk up to me.
Yeah, he's a pretty tall guy, so whatever I could reach. And I asked him, "Do you remember me?" And he said no. So,
but I saw you walk in to the bar, and we were both with friends just it was the last night I was in town before heading back down south, and like last hoorah, and saw you walk in, and, like, and you just walked right up to me. Like, I mean, I was watching, I noticed you immediately, and you just walked right up to me, and so I was caught off guard. Like, what world am I living in that, that you just walk right up to me and just look up at me and say, "Do you remember me?" And I'm like,
but you didn't remember me. So then we ended up going to another bar, and you had told me that you and your friends don't go to that bar. But sure enough, I saw him entering that new place a little bit after my friends and I were there, and we hit it off. We talked all night, and we left by saying, we're Facebook friends, and he said, "No, we're not." And I remember asking him in college in my room. I remember knowing he was cute. I remembered him from confirmation class, and I remember being like taking the risk to like see if he'll accept it. This is like back when Facebook was new and really exciting, and
which is when we started college, basically.
Yeah. So we shook on it. That was how we ended the night when the bar was closing. Oh. And sure enough, I got a little message on Facebook at 2:30 a.m. that said, "Do you remember?"
You were right. I can't. We are Facebook friends, and
P.S. I think you're very pretty.
What are you, just like playing hard to get or something?
Oh yeah, this is all part of a grand plan. Oh. That was that smooth. Yeah, right. I wish I was not as involved on my Facebook as So I do remember when you asked me to be my friend, and I was like, well, of course I'll be your friend.
So you guys hadn't seen each other for like 4 or 5 years at that point.
No.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, no, more than that.
We went to different high schools.
We were freshman year.
We were friends in similar circles, but just never crossed paths.
Yeah. Like freshman year of high school. So we didn't see each other till after college. So it would have been like 9 years.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, so then we ended up talking on Facebook exclusively. We didn't exchange numbers. It was just Facebook messages that, were first a few sentences long.
Well, because like I said, I went back down south
the next day,
and you responded to my message, and we kind of started messaging from there, and it was it went pretty quickly from Facebook messages. Well, no, that's not true. It was Facebook messages that became basically letters that we were exchanging
without any phone calls
like
or seeing each other.
Written letters.
Yeah.
Written messages. So I mean, like getting to know each other, like pen pals, basically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't have a computer at the time, so I was borrowing when I could borrow my roommate's laptop, which became annoying to him pretty quickly because I'm sitting there on the couch writing, and he's what novel are you writing? Yeah. Like, come on,
And what did you say to him though? Who are you writing to?
Oh, so I'm going to marry this girl. So just back off. Give me, I appreciate you letting me use your
Were you just joking around? You actually?
No, I was 100% serious. I was good. Yeah.
When did you guys know?
Later than that. So we ended up exchanging a lot of Facebook messages, enough that I literally made, and I wish I would have brought it with, a chapter book for our first anniversary. I actually hand typed every single message that we sent back and forth into a
chapter book.
Chapter
like
book.
A hardbound chapter book.
Wow, that's a treasure.
Yeah, and it became from that to like actual letters, like written on paper with pen into the mail.
Once I lost access to the laptop,
it
was a BP oil spill, and I was working on the coast, and it was the night before I was asked to go out to it. So the next morning, I sent one last message.
Here's my phone number.
Yeah, please, and I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna work.
So,
but you were communicating for a while before you gave
like
her
5
your
months.
phone number.
But I was nervous. At that time I had a flip phone. I didn't have a computer. Like I had no. It wasn't like a Facebook app that I was just. iPhones weren't quite what they are today.
Yeah. So I was like, I had the choice. Do I reach out to him? And because I was really pretty shy. And it was already uncharacteristic of me to go up to him in the bar. So I remember I was with my friends on a spring break, and I called him, and it was because texting wasn't the same back then, So
You
just
got to
kinda
hit the same button
Yeah.
3 times to get a letter.
took the risk. Yeah. So we ended up from there, sending packages of everything from mixtapes to, like, I remember making a tie blanket and like his favorite treats, and he would send me love letters, and
Yeah.
kind of gained trust from him. I feel like we were talking on the way here. I had long-term relationships, one in high school and one in college, and then long-term relationships. And we ended up, then I was dating like a lot of first dates because I just knew I needed to find the right type of guy that I could trust. And that wasn't in it for the reasons that they were in it for, So it was a lot of first dates, and he was kind of kidding. He's like, yeah, a lot of first dates.
A lot. Well, yeah. You were dating hard.
And so, just friends are friends. I did a little dabbled on online, and ended up, I think the messaging is what allowed me to trust him, because we were friends first, and we established, a relationship, quote unquote, through messages, and then we would be on the phone for hours a night, and just.
Well, and then it was intentional that we didn't, at least on my part, it was intentional I didn't give you my phone number, because I knew it was going to be an extended period of time that we weren't going to be physically together. So I didn't want to like let this fizzle out, I guess.
How much physical distance was actually between the two of you?
So I was in Chicago
And I was
suburbs.
in New Orleans. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a distance.
So then we ended up.
Yeah, north to south. Yeah.
Yeah. So he ended up coming in town for a bachelor party, and he was in a wedding, and we went out to breakfast. His plane the plane didn't. It was a bad storm in Texas, and he.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was the first. Yeah.
We had our first date planned, and he didn't come because he couldn't.
I ended up, being stuck in Dallas, because there's always like New Orleans to Dallas to Chicago was a typical layover, and it was a storm that just sat on Dallas for half a day. It was like, it just wouldn't move, and I'm watching it, and they put me up. I mean, the airline actually put me up in a hotel. I remember I was there for like 3 hours because it was like I was in the hotel, and then.
And I remember being so sad. It was so much time had gone by that we had gotten to know each other, and the big day was finally here. And I ended up going out with my friends that night because I was like, whatever, And so he showed up at my door. I think I slept for like 3 hours, and he was ready to go on a date. So we ended up going on a first date for breakfast instead.
Yeah, to brunch. Yeah.
But anyways, we ended up, he came back for the wedding a few weeks later. We obviously saw each other not very often, but.
You were my guest.
Yeah. And he ended up, I ended up going to visit him a few times down in New Orleans, and that's when we knew. We were just talking about the night we went out to a fancy dinner, and I remember he ate turtle soup. Things that we haven't talked about.
It was a very fancy place.
It is very fancy.
And we were sitting on his couch, and we both just, like, that's when he told me he loved me. But we both just, every time we were together, it was like we didn't have to be doing anything special.
Which was that was probably as big of a moment for me as asking you to marry me, was telling you that I loved you. I had the same feelings in my stomach, and I was experiencing kind of the same thing when
Were you kind of thinking about it beforehand?
Yeah, it was very similar to, the preparation and then the delivery and everything. Of
what was going through your head?
Oh man, I felt like I was floating, and I was nervous, but I also just, I don't know, I knew what we were sharing. So I wasn't nervous that you weren't gonna say it back or accept it. It was more nervous of just, I want this to mean something very special, and I want this to be delivered.
It's a really important part of that bonding process, and the letter writing is awesome. Mm-hmm. I think human beings are supposed to move more at that pace. Mm-hmm. People move so fast. these days, and that's nice. You guys had that space. That kind of happened for us.
Yeah, it was very quick. Yeah.
Well, we were friends first because, well, lots of reasons.
Yeah, and again, listen to our past podcast about our own story. But what was it about your partner that you fell in love with?
Well, a few things. I mean, it was like I said, when I first saw Michelle walk in, I just saw into her eyes. Like, I mean, it was like looking into the space, like in stars. Like there was just so much there.
Yeah, mine was, he just was like so thoughtful. Like some of the things I remember in the letters, like he would say, like, you remind me of my aunts and all the women that I look up to. Like, you are that for me. And to me, that was so impactful. The people that shaped him and raised him, and me being someone that was at that level, that was really, really neat. And just, again, like Nick said, and again, it could have been the beginning of a relationship, right? The honeymoon phase and lust or whatever. But it's just like we were together, and it wasn't often because we were long distance. But we would literally feel like we were floating, like we were high, like, and just to be like not, to be doing anything crazy, just to be sitting together and like holding each other. It was just, again, I wasn't into drugs or anything, but I felt like that was the closest thing to being high with another person. And I felt like that was something I'd never felt before. And just knowing his relationship with his sisters and his family, and just having, really strong morals with allowing family to be important to him. I felt like that was something that I wanted for my own family, in terms of raising my own children one day. So a lot of things that those first dates didn't have.
So what happens next?
So we ended up, we met the beginning of January, and he ended up being just pen pals on Facebook until about May, and then he ended up coming home in June for the weddings, and he ended up moving home in November. So remember I flew out there. When I arrived, he picked me up with a potted plant. So they ran out of actual flowers, so he brought a potted
flower
for me, which had to stay there. And
the gift that keeps on giving.
I know, right? It was actually cute now. I'd actually prefer it, but it was funny because I think I had to fly home or something, and it was like, oh, thank you. So he ended up in November, he moved home, and at that time he was going to go to pursue law school, so he was studying for the LSAT, living at his parents' house, and we ended up moving in together that next summer. So
you were living in Chicago.
I was living in the city. So then we obviously were together, living there, and I don't remember in May of the next following year we lived together for a year, and had some rocky up and downs with our relationship at that point, and we ended up getting engaged the next May. So that was pretty much what happened.
What were some of the rocky moments in your relationship at that point?
Well, we were, since I moved home, we had, I mean, we were passionate, but so passionate on the ups and downs. I mean, it was like we would have like some large disagreements. Before I moved home, my friends from college all booked, like a last minute trip. And I was like, well, this is, kind of my last chance before I move home. I'll go with them. And we went out to Las Vegas, and ultimately there was, there's infidelity, and I struggled with what to do, and, with how to deal with that. It wasn't it wasn't like a premeditated thing. And what I ended up doing was deciding that it's something that just should be buried. And, we're not married, we're dating.
And we would fight about those types of things. Like, we were watching a movie, and he was saying one of the actresses was hot, and I felt I just didn't feel it was appropriate, and we were fighting about that. And that's when we were living together, and he was kind of arguing with me about it being okay to view other women in that way, and I was being insecure. And then out of nowhere, he told me about what happened in Vegas, and it was a year before. After we had developed a relationship, living together. I mean, I remember exactly where I was. Like, I can put myself back in that room, whenever any, memory, gets me there, So, we definitely had to deal with that, not knowing how. I mean, I basically made him leave. I think you went to a church that whole night, or stayed in your car, until the church opened, and spent the whole day in a church. And I wasn't okay in our apartment alone, and we were apart for a little while, but I remember my dad saying, you need to make a choice. You need to forgive him or move on to someone else, and realize this is the end. And I knew what we had, and I knew the potential for our relationship, and I chose to forgive him, but didn't know how to really get there. And I feel like I welcomed him back very soon into our apartment, and I was very cautious, but I believed it was a one-time thing, and it was gonna be different.
So long ago.
It was that's the thing. I was really upset that it happened so long ago, and he kind of like let it, he buried it. But I had to find out after we had a year of experience together and living together and building that relationship together, and so I felt like
all that was a sham.
Yeah, I felt it was a sham. I thought the letters were a sham. I thought everything was just like, what was that? All the things you were sending me in the mail, but you had just done that to me. And he kept saying, it was so long ago. I'm different now. And so that was our hard times. And again, time went past, and we had to, gain trust again. And we did end up getting engaged and married. But it was something that I feel like we should have sought counseling at the time, but didn't have any role models or anyone to tell us to do so. We just kind of thought we could handle it together, and that thing happens. People deal with these types of things.
Well, I think we both had influences that were kind of like, well, you guys weren't married. I mean, so what, okay. So like, and from my end, it was more like, well, are you sure you needed to say that? Like, are you sure you had to
Tell her.
Because that's gonna, look at the difficulty that you had.
Why did you tell her?
Because I couldn't. I wanted to get married, and I could not marry her without telling her. It sounds like, okay, I just buried it for a year and forgot about it, but that's not true. I mean, it was something that was with me every single day. That, like, knowing I should, but trying to figure out how not to tell her. And it was...
Can you talk about that thought process? Like, who you were before you got on that plane to go to Vegas, and then how'd you get to telling her?
Like, I have, like, a deep faith. And that was always a guide for me. Because I had gone through things in my life prior to meeting Michelle that I needed, like, a compass. And I relied on that compass. So basically my conscience kept trying to, like, kept just, punching me. This needs to come out. Like, you need to address this. And it was immediate. And then it was always, like I said, trying to rationalize based on other influences in my life that, like, maybe I don't need to. Like, maybe this is something that would just move past and forget about. And, it took me a long time to come to terms with, this is something that needs to come out. And it was something that, like, if I was going to make that commitment to marriage, like, I couldn't live with this inside anymore and keep it from the person that I'm committing to for the rest of my life. And so that's kind of where
Did you have anyone that you talked to about it that day after you told her? And what messages did you get?
Yeah, I did. And so, I showed up at home and unexpectedly and kind of walked in. It was late and walked in and was like, hey, I'm here. And to my parents, at the time, that was just my parents at home. And explained, kind of briefly what happened and why I was home. And kind of that's one of the messages I got was like, well, why did you feel the need to tell her that, and like I said, I had other influences too, like my friends' parents and stuff, people that I grew up with and looked up to, and even current friends that were like knew what happened and they're like, dude, no, that was a mistake, forget about it, move on,
Were you surprised by that response?
So yes, I mean, I felt what was right in my heart, and what I was hearing went against that, and I struggled with that. I chose what I knew was right in my heart. I chose to suppress that and go with external opinions on what to do.
And it's hard for me because I was raised, honesty was the most strong with, moral in my home. My mom used to say, you'll get in less trouble if you tell the truth. So, just commitment and, just giving who I was of a person to someone else, it took a lot. I was, I don't know, you can say goody two-shoes. I wasn't with many people, men, I was really holding myself, not for marriage, but for the right person. And so when I found that trust in Nick through the messages and through just knowing him as a person, I trusted him with my whole self. And I trusted honesty. And it took me, I was caught so off guard because it was so uncharacteristic of who I thought he was. I didn't even know how to respond. And I think I asked him a lot of questions to the point where I still can see it happening. The dress color of the girl, things that I just wish I didn't. I guess I'm glad I know what happened, but I can put myself back in Vegas. And the interesting thing is I remember telling him, why are you going to Vegas? I know what happens in Vegas. And to me, I didn't know why he had to go. He was like, it's my guy friends. It was planned so last minute. And I'm a planner, I'm a teacher. I was like, don't go. Not that I could have influenced him in that way, but I just had a bad feeling. And I remember, my boss let me go into her office. I was teaching and to talk to you. He had called me the next morning as if nothing happened. But again, I feel like because it felt so uncharacteristic of him at that time, I thought we could move forward, start a family, get married. And I thought that if we got engaged and if we got married, that we would just forget about it and it would go away. But I feel like it kept coming up. There were things that, even in our marriage, that would come up.
Oh, and any time it came up, it was the full flood because we never really dealt with it. So it was like,
I was back in that room.
Each time it would come up, it would bring the full, it would relive the entire thing. And it was
so you guys tried
the
to
most painful thing ever.
Pack it up in a box and put it aside, but
yeah.
So basically what I had done, it's difficult to look back because you want to look yourself in the mirror and be proud of who's looking back at you. And you see, and for me, for a long time, I couldn't do that. I was pretending that I was proud of who I was seeing in the mirror. Or I feel fortunate that I can look at myself. I can be proud of who I am. And I am, difficult or not, I'm following what I know is right for me.
Michelle, you were talking about you guys at that time were trying to start a family. Do you think that disconnect contributed to that difficulty in trying to start a family?
Absolutely. I mean, not at the time. I don't feel like I believed that. We tried for a year, like they make you, before seeking any medical help. Ended up conceiving our son through IVF, so medical intervention, thankfully.
First try. I mean, it was like, I don't
And
know, it was crazy. We tried for a year, right?
yeah. And then, I had our son, and then I thought, we'll just have to go through IVF every time. It was hard,
Which is not an easy process.
Yeah, definitely not. It was very hard. But we were naive to the fact that that was not going to be the case for us. We tried again, a year later, and went through 4 failed rounds. And, just tried everything from acupuncture to no dairy, gluten, alcohol, coffee, nothing. Tried it all. And ended up going through the adoption journey. We decided to just, went on that walkabout to Banff and sitting, finally finding quality time, with our son was at our grandparents, and we ended up having real conversations about what's next for our family. This isn't working. Our bodies are, I felt like my body was failing me. And we decided to adopt. So it started with an agency. That was a roller coaster in itself. Lots of birth moms that were pretending to be pregnant and trying to, it was like emotional scams we had no idea about. So, we had dealt with 5 years of infertility, IVF, miscarriage at 11 weeks, to adoption scams. It was a lot.
All during this time, do you think you were really just focusing on trying to get pregnant?
Absolutely.
And getting a child through adoption and not really looking at what was going on between the two of you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a distraction for sure. I mean, it was like
it was all we thought of. I mean, it was
Yeah.
IVF. I mean, I was going to the doctor every morning before work, leaving at 4:45 in the morning to get to an hour away for the appointments, every blood works, ultrasound. I mean, it was my hormones are crazy. I was going after school to acupuncture an hour away. I was, committing my whole self to pregnancy. I mean, that was all we wanted. It was like going through the motions, right? We want a sibling for our son. We wanted to, I always wanted 4 kids, like what can we do to get there? And I finally realized, I think I need to talk to someone. And I had a few friends that had referred me to Jean. So I had called the Lighthouse to go for, I didn't even think about couples counseling. I went to talk to someone for myself. I wanted to make sure I was in the right place to start the adoption journey, and I had just been through a lot. My body had been through a lot, and I was tired.
You didn't want it to be
just to have another child. We wanted,
like you didn't want it to be like like we're going through you want another child by any means. So it's like, well, I guess
I can't do it.
naturally didn't work. So okay, fine, adoption.
Yeah, we wanted to
like,
make sure. Like we had talked to couples, and we sat down with them, and get dinner with them to like learn their journey and their story. But we just wanted to make sure we were ready for it, because we had been through a lot emotionally, like in our own relationship and then in our fertility attempts. And
But you guys weren't really connected at this time.
No, we absolutely, we were not to the depth that we could have been. And I called, and they said, we don't,
Yeah, we were supportive of each other.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
But not connected.
No, now knowing what it feels to be connected. And I remember they said, we only do couples counseling for Jean. And I was like, okay, well then sign us up for that. And didn't speak with Nick, because it was all on the same call, and didn't get the best
And I was on a
response.
business trip. And
Yeah.
You called me. It's like, hey, guess what? I signed us up for couples counseling. And I'm like,
What? Yeah, because to him, like, he didn't think we needed that,
isn't that
right?
something you think you should talk to me about?
Yeah. So, we had gone into couples counseling in the way of getting ready for adoption, to know that that was our next route, to make sure that was what we wanted to do, to grow our family. And little did we know, we had a lot of healing to do within ourselves and within our relationship that we had kind of buried. And by just going through the motions of getting married, starting a family.
Little did you know.
Little did we know.
So we just took a really brief break, and I just wanted to say that, Nick and Michelle are sharing from a really intimate, deep place after doing a lot of good work, and it really highlights the way that we want to work with people, full healing, not Band-Aid stuff. And just to really respect that and, be grateful for you guys sharing your journey. And I know a lot of people, they're dabbling somewhere on that pathway, and I'm sure you're speaking to them. So, Michelle, and feel free to express your anger towards me or whatever else was part of your journey. But, you started doing the hard work, and I know it's hard work. And can you share about what you discovered about yourself and your relationship to your own spirit, your own body going through this journey?
Yeah, I definitely, first of all, we were chicken, whatever, deer in headlights, I guess you could say. And the
What was the chicken?
chicken with the head cut off. Oh, the wrong one. Must be this cocktail.
Chicken and headlights.
It works. Our first counseling session, it was, I feel like we were just like vomiting words, like we're dealing with this, but we want to adopt. And, we just didn't even know what we needed at that time. And then we'd work with, I'd work with Jean individually, and we'd do some couples therapy with Dr. A and Jean. And it was hard. I mean, I used to, say, Jean, so, she hates me. And I hate feeling this way from counseling. And other days I'd be like so relieved to share things that I hadn't talked to anyone about. And it was just something that I think we needed so bad, but we didn't know we needed, and I learned, I knew I was like a nervous person, but I had no idea like my anxiety was as high as it was. Like I remember some breathing exercises, and it was like how many breaths in a minute, and I was like way at the high level of that. So just an understanding, like, the expectations I was putting on myself, and being the victim always in this fertility journey. I feel like, why is this happening to me and us? And just understanding some childhood wounds that I had to go through and like live through, and didn't even know it existed truly until talking with Eugene and just having, the ability to heal with Nick, something that, I didn't understand before counseling, how it related to our relationship in terms of how we could use each other to get to deeper places, and how to heal things that were coming up in our relationship that were things that I was dealing with internally, not knowingly.
Did you struggle with, in your mind and in your upbringing, you were taught some beliefs about honesty and chastity and those kind of things, and then the disconnect between really believing that and then feeling in your body like, why is this bothering me, and other people don't get upset by that? And
yeah, I just, again, because I would second guess myself then too, and knowing the other people were fine with it. People that I, really good friends, and adults that were older than me that I looked up to. But I knew that wasn't right. And not only from my upbringing, I just knew in my heart that I didn't feel that respected women and myself. And I just knew there was another way, there was other ways to show that. And I don't know, I mean, again, it was an internal struggle, but I felt strong to that belief. I held strong to it, to the point where I had said, do we stay together? Because to me, I can't do this. Like, I can't let that moral go. Something that I felt very strongly since I've been young, to the decisions that I've made and didn't make, my whole childhood.
Like it hurt, and it was scary to go through and, bury yourself and explain, or and kind of allow your flaws or your choices to be seen. But I think there's also a sense of relief of knowing this is right. Like, this is what I've, inside
validation.
I've been, what I've, this
Validation,
is what,
yeah.
exactly. Validation of what, I thought was supposed to happen, but I was rationalizing away. So it was worth the pain to get to that.
Can you guys talk about physiologically, what did it feel like in your bodies when you were going against your heart and your spirit?
So I think it's the definition of anxiety. Like I had no, again, to your point, like I didn't know, I knew people that had anxiety, and I just saw it as like I don't know, like you just not dealing with what you have to deal with kind of thing. Or like you just, feel what you got to feel kind of thing, or whatever it was. It seemed like something that was solvable. But for myself, I had no idea and it wasn't just the level of anxiety that I had in my relationship with Michelle, but it was my entire life. I had anxiety around things. I grew up playing baseball, and like I probably would have been a lot better at baseball if I was aware of the anxiety that I was feeling. Of failing, it limited me.
Of judgment.
Massively.
And
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like
validation.
and just burying all of that to like a weakness or whatever it was. Like it was just
But I think you've learned to feel feelings through counseling. I feel like you felt feelings or thought you should have felt feelings. Like I remember being upset he didn't cry at our wedding day. And I think I put pressure on you. I'm like, I hope you cry, like when you see me, because that's what you see in the movies or whatever. But I feel like when we had a miscarriage, like I was so upset. I had to go through a D&C, and I had to, I felt the physiological, like I was sick from being pregnant, and then just obviously the roller coaster of just all the journey we went through and all the failures. And I remember he didn't cry. And to me, I didn't feel like he felt the feelings that I felt. And I felt so alone in that. And I feel like you learn not only that you had anxiety, but you learned it's okay to feel things as a man.
Sure. Yeah. No, and that was another. You're right. That's a good point. And it's something that it's like feelings, like isn't. That's not like a men or a man versus a woman thing, or it's not like not manly to feel. It's a human thing. And
that's the F word. You don't say the F word.
Well, and I think I remember maybe you saying once, like, are you a little uncomfortable to talk about feelings at this session? And I'm like,
allegedly, I may have said that.
And it's just it's so, kind of getting back to what what your question was earlier, Gene, about just, where we're at today versus where we were, and just the journey and like the weight that you hold, that you carry around by not identifying or just allowing your feelings to be there, or like just understand that it's normal to feel and just let it be, let yourself feel. And then, the awareness of what you're feeling, and just identifying and understanding it. It's just, man, like it was so heavy.
Yeah.
Especially, I guess the other thing too is just like when for me, and I think this is probably the case, whether what others out there want to admit it or not, it's like it's so lonely. I mean, you're creating an environment where you're so lonely. I mean, you feel like you're the only one feeling these things, and it's that's uncomfortable, and it's just that's not the way to live your life. I mean, you have one chance at this. I mean, go for it, let it go.
Lonely in a partnership.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. I mean, and the more you double down on it, the lonelier, the more separated and lonely the two of you get.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel it mostly in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And then we think, well, maybe there's something wrong with my body.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I would think,
Yeah.
Well, and the things, it would come out in our bodies in different ways. I mean, we would like, you'd have like a sickness or an illness or whatever it was, like, and you would say like, well, what, oh God, something's wrong with me. It's like,
well, women's bodies are made to procreate, and there was a lot of shame and guilt with that, knowing I couldn't, even with all the medical interventions. And moving forward, after a lot of the work we went through and seeing his transformation and feeling like true trust.
Yeah, our transformation.
Yeah, but yeah, of course.
Right.
But in terms of, for me, like in terms of that moral, that was always faltering.
Validating.
Yeah, like just see his work into who I knew he could be and who he was meant to be. It was a weight off of me, obviously, in terms of that feeling of, oh my gosh, like when do I have to ask him? Has it been long enough? Like double guessing everything in terms of our connection and lack of, et cetera. And so moving forward, we, in the middle of an adoption journey, we're pregnant.
How did you get to the point of letting go of having a natural child and stopping medical intervention and accepting that you were going to bring someone into your family that you didn't birth?
So,
Well, it became so we started counseling right after we started, the 4th round
of
Right,
IVF. Yeah.
So we had just started it, and
I remember, Jean, I think you said, like, do you want to go through with this?
and Dr. Ray too.
And Nick was like, I don't think you should do this. And I was
what
like,
are your thoughts on this? And
I'm already halfway
like,
through.
Actually starting to express my thoughts on it of well, I don't like it. I'm not comfortable with it. She's been through this how many times? This is pumping her full of synthetic hormones.
I was on the maximum amount you could give a human being.
Oh, they just kept saying, well, that one didn't work. Let's increase it.
up.
Let's increase it. Let's increase it.
I mean, it's hard to go through.
Yeah.
And so I remember him halfway through the cycle saying, I don't want to do this anymore. Like after a session with Dr. Ray, I'm like, oh, well, we can't stop now. I'm putting shots into my body 6 a day,
I cannot accept any responsibility.
So, but I think it was finally his feelings were he was able to express his feelings and realized he had some
Well, someone asked me.
Well, and so I ended up going through it, didn't work. And finally I realized, especially with Nick's, again, I felt like my body was failing me, right? So I would do anything I needed to get us to the next point of trying again, for him and for our family. And for him finally to say, I don't like this for you and for your body was a validation too for myself. Okay, it's not just on me, and that was helpful and understanding that journey and that door was closing. We're going to move forward in another route, another path.
But at the time that meant adoption. That didn't mean, we weren't anticipating having a baby.
Yeah,
you were told you were
going through menopause.
Yeah.
My numbers
at what age?
It was done.
33,
there was no
32, my numbers were 0.01, 0.01, not possible.
What were they supposed to be? Or
1 to 2, but
sure.
Literally.
This is a certain hormone. But it was basically the normal range is 2 to 4 or something. And we were 0.01. So it was
So I kind of
it was
understand.
medically impossible to get pregnant. It was basically you just
We're going through menopause
you're just
early.
One of those rare cases. You're an anomaly. You're going through menopause at 33 instead of when you should be. And it was
so I started to accept that. To the point where we decided to look up other avenues, and we wanted more children. And again, we didn't want to just rush into adoption. We wanted to sit down with other couples and really learn about the progression of what this would look like for us. And we wanted to make sure it wasn't just oh, I can't get pregnant, I want to adopt. We wanted to be sure it was right for us. And again, I feel we knew that was our plan. We didn't know the roller coaster that would come along with it, in terms of that being an entirely different type of emotional pain, understanding, a birth mom's feelings and
being scammed.
Being
they're
scammed.
emotional scammers that aren't in it for anything other than just the thrill of scamming.
Like we would Facebook, we would like FaceTime other people.
Like literally see them. Yeah, it was really strange.
And then, you know,
Multiple times.
we met with them
I
in
mean,
person.
And this is something that we, you know, that you would post, like we'd post on like social media. And so it'd be like, you know, we're open to, you know, you're allowing anyone and everyone to see it, but you're like, your intention is to like, you know, get to the audience of someone that is looking
To
or in a
place their
difficult
child.
place. And yeah, like here's a less, you know, I don't know, here's an avenue to possibly pursue this. And
Instead of
it
before an
becomes-
agency. But then even during our agency, we had scams.
So
And
you're not only dealing with the trust in your relationship and trying to make sure that that's solid, but now you're bringing someone else in and having to vet their trust and trustworthiness.
Absolutely.
Right?
And that's my biggest
talking
thing.
on the phone with, you know, scammers and
And they
like
know
you
what to
said,
say.
Video calling and
I mean, we've
it's
had one of the
really-
biggest scammers that's been on like Maury. Literally, like she is known. And she just sounded to us like a young high schooler that
which is really scary because she's like older than us and like so she tricks
Wow.
her voice.
She's a
So this was
scammer
Christmas.
influencer.
yeah, it was yeah. No.
Well, you're right because it wasn't just her. I mean, she was the first one, and then we had one that was like, you know, wearing. I mean,
They
had
wear, like,
got
fake
to the
bellies.
point-
So these are women that aren't pregnant
No.
that want to have an emotional hijacking of you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
not.
they-
It's not financial. Are they?
It's not financial.
Wow.
So if it was financial,
I think
there's
that's
a
penalty for that. So they
there's
don't
a,
get
there's
that
a
far.
law. Yeah, like there's legal repercussion, but like if it's just emotional, it's basically just you got duped. Like there's nothing you can really do about it.
So that was a whole nother experience in terms of our journey.
Did that feel like when you guys were going through IVF and other parts of your relationship, the loneliness? Did getting duped as a couple help you feel less lonely?
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't associate loneliness at all with that. I mean, we were
No, but that
we were
you were
together
bonded through it. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
totally.
But the
Yeah.
other stuff was like
Yes.
separate.
Oh,
Now
yeah.
you're together.
And I would like just trying to like keep this like chronologically. I mean, this was after we had worked through a lot of these issues to become a lot more connected. So like we were doing really well together
As a
and
couple.
Like, and then this would happen, and it's like we're going through it together. I mean, like
Do you think if you hadn't done that work, it would actually have separated you even more?
yeah, I think we wouldn't have known how to
Get through that.
We wouldn't have known how to deal with that ourselves. And so there's no way we would have known how to deal with it together. And I think it would have just been the same pattern of I would just bury it and then kind of say, okay, we'll get, whatever. There are crazy people out there, whatever it is, and just like
Right.
let's get through it,
And maybe turn on each other, blame
Yeah.
each other. Right?
Oh yeah, and that would probably it would have been received as I don't care. And
He doesn't have
you would have been
emotions for
feeling
this.
it, and I wouldn't have been validating your feelings.
Yeah.
I would have been feeling it, but I wouldn't have been expressing it.
So then, yeah, I mean, that was what we were in an agency. I mean, it was,
So during counseling, we decided to go forward with adoption and signed with an agency and went down the path, and then all of a sudden,
yeah, we were moving. We decided to move. And I thought I had chronic fatigue syndrome. And Nick's like, what?
We started to pack.
Because you're so exhausted.
I was literally laying on my carpet in my bedroom. Like, I am not one to sleep on couches. Like, I sleep in my bed. I was laying on my couch, on my floor of my bedroom, just like,
I walked up.
I'm
like
like,
my
I d-
sister was in town to help us, and I walk
so
upstairs. I see Michelle laying at the foot of the bed, and I'm like, "What are you doing?"
on the floor. I was like on the floor.
Yeah.
And so it was just not okay. And I
like, I
never
think
would have thought I was
something's wrong.
pregnant. I mean, that wasn't possible for us. We had done ovulation sticks every month for 5 years. We gave up on that. We were in the adoption
we were like,
journey.
Okay, it's over.
And so, last thing I thought was to take a pregnancy test. I mean, the pregnancy test was such an emotional journey each time to see that.
Especially
Negative.
with IVF. Yeah.
And sure enough, I was pregnant.
What did you guys think at that point?
I mean, I didn't believe it. I told him immediately.
call
He was
me up
taking
and
the
you're like, hey.
trash out. I mean, you have this whole like, how am I going to tell my husband I'm pregnant? There's so many ways to reveal it. I literally ran down the stairs and I'm like, come see this.
Same thing with the house, by the way.
What?
I was like, this is the house we're moving to.
Yeah. But just all of a sudden,
found it.
yeah, and all of a sudden,
then
just
it's like,
telling him, I'm pregnant.
I'm pregnant. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
He's holding a trash bag, like taking out the garbage.
Yeah.
And we were.
So it's not chronic fatigue syndrome?
Well, it's part of pregnancy. So anyways, we ended up, because we had been at high risk, with all of our years of struggle, we called the doctor immediately, went in for lots of ultrasounds, and
Well, so
we were scared. I mean, obviously,
to
very,
be-
very, very, very scared.
And you'd had miscarriages in the past.
yeah,
Yes.
I was going to say, so this wasn't the first time we had naturally conceived. So we had, after the third round of IVF,
We got pregnant
we
the next
naturally
month.
conceived, and then
Miscarried at 11 weeks.
yeah, and so that was so we, like we said, we were past the point of any expectation or hope that it would happen, but then
When we were
immediately
pregnant.
once that happened, that was our thought, like, oh, okay, well, however, this is great, however, it's we need to brace ourselves for what is most likely gonna happen.
Well, in our own experience, and I remember calling my sister and mom immediately. Like, I was like brand new pregnant, Most people don't share that with anybody for a while, but I was so scared. We went to the doctor, had ultrasounds. But every ultrasound was so scary. I had to see my baby's heart stop beating in the last pregnancy, and that's where I can place myself in an ultrasound room.
Mm-hmm.
And it was COVID, and I couldn't come to the appointments like he used to with Beckett. And I had done that alone, the ultrasound,
So you're talking about twins, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So
No,
so then we did find that
Yeah.
Nick thankfully was there that time, and
the miscarriage was when is what you were talking about, right?
So there was a miscarriage before.
yes.
Okay.
And this was a couple of years
And
back, and then we ended up getting pregnant again naturally. And this time, we were super scared, but it was COVID, so he couldn't really be there for me with everything.
Yeah.
But he was there the second ultrasound I had. Any ultrasound to me is scary because the last one before this pregnancy was
It was literally
finding out that the
and
baby
it was an
didn't-
up and down. So that miscarriage was up and down. It was like all of a sudden it was like everything's looking great, and then okay, something doesn't look great, and then the next week, oh, that's actually looking good, like everything's good, and then the next week, oh yeah, and it's not looking good.
But in the
and then
end-
all of a sudden it was like, oh okay, I'm sorry everyone, like this is
Yeah.
not gonna work.
And I had to find that out alone. This was a couple years back, but I don't know, the baby or something. I had to go alone and do that. So then I was back alone
the
in the
final-
COVID situation in terms of
Being in an ultrasound room,
Yeah.
and
to potentially find out this baby that we think is a miracle isn't gonna make it. So
and then
we ended up at the second ultrasound. The first one we had no heartbeat. We were extremely excited, again hesitant. The day we closed on our house, a brand new house, we ended up finding out there was twins at 8 weeks, and I saw it first
Naturally. too.
Naturally.
natural
Yeah.
twins. Yep.
And I literally looked at the ultrasound tech and said, "Is that another baby?" Because we had already seen the baby with a heartbeat 2 weeks prior, and she's like, "Yes," or she was quiet, and that baby was just lost because it was almost to the day where the other
It's
one
like
was
the same size.
measuring.
Yeah, measuring the same,
But no heartbeat.
But no heartbeat. So it's very recent.
And it was an identical twin. So in our minds, this was another path that we lost that one. We knew the other miscarriage
They're identical, is most likely genetic, so we were anticipating.
because the last miscarriage was genetic chromosomal abnormality. So knowing
so we were
our
thinking, well, okay, we lost the identical twin due to some sort of genetic abnormality, so then we're bracing for
when's this going to happen next?
the identical genes are very similar to that. When is this going to happen for
So
this one? And
every
it
week was extremely
scary, yeah.
stressful. Yeah, and we were thankfully bonded together at this point, thankfully for our work through counseling, and but it was always like cautiously optimistic. Like we wanted so hard to believe in this miracle baby, but we also knew what we've lost in the past. But every week, 1 week then they tell us at 10 weeks that the baby had extremely thick neck, bowed limbs, that most likely had severe special needs. So then we were bracing with,
So then we went to the high risk doctor.
yeah, I have a sister with special needs. So, it's genetic passed down, what is this? And we went to a genetic high risk, doctor. And, it was just like, again, another type of emotional roller coaster of pregnancy. First it's, the IVF journey, then it's the adoption roller coaster, and then it's this natural baby roller coaster. And I came to Eugene. I hadn't seen you in a while with COVID and everything. And I remember you hugged me for so long. I hadn't hugged anybody forever. Yeah. Not even my own mom.
We should also say too, we'll always remember when like where we were, what we were.
When we told you guys.
When we told you.
We were pregnant.
Like that we were naturally pregnant. And so this was before we knew about the twin or anything, but it was.
Yeah, special. But we feel
once we had kind of, and to be honest, this was when we had kind of graduated from, it was to the point where we were like, okay, we've got the tools, we've got, what we,
in COVID,
we've kind of dealt with what we need to be,
yeah.
So you guys were there. Yeah.
To know, to be able to
continue growing individually as a couple.
Yeah, move on, like move past, like we can handle this on our own. And it was like at that point, which was just so beautiful and fitting. Hey, by the way, guess what?
So yeah, and we have welcomed our baby girl. She is. She's here.
The high risk, all that ups and downs and everything else, and now we have she was born February 25th, and she's
3.5 months. We're on our first date right now at your podcast.
She's absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
And so, it was it wasn't without its ups and downs and anxiety-ridden moments, but like we, not only have the tools to deal with that individually, but together as well. Like, and no matter what happened, no matter what happens, we know, we've got each other. And
it's definitely different now.
Anything.
Like our foundation
Yeah.
was created. We should have created it way before marriage, but we didn't have the tools. We didn't know what we didn't have, and looking back now, thankfully we have gotten there, and to see, what we needed so bad. And I really, really attribute our baby to you guys. We haven't told you this yet, but I call her Harper Jean all the time.
What? Really?
And our baby, Rain, is our baby in heaven.
Rain
Grace.
And
So-
Rain.
Wow.
That's in honor of Ray as a.
Oh my gosh. This is the first time we're hearing this.
So we really are so thankful for finding you guys. It was crazy, the intervention of, I thought I needed counseling myself and signing Nick up without his approval and doing the hard work. And, it was not easy to go through what we needed to fix within ourselves and what we needed to fix within our relationship, and, understanding the continued path of what we need to continue to work on. But we have a testament, a true miracle baby that we can look at now. It validates the work and the hardships that we'd gone through, that infertility got us here. And it's crazy to think, I was feeling like a victim for so long. Why me? It's not fair. Life's not fair. And that journey brought us to a way stronger marriage and a way stronger connection, a different view on life. And, we hope to pass that down to our children. We see everything so differently.
Yeah, life isn't supposed to be easy. And we almost, thanks to Eugene and Dr. Ray, that's honestly, you've taught us to embrace
hardship.
You taught us the right, it's okay to embrace the difficulty and the struggle and because that's where growth happens, and that's where you really if life's easy, and we were just talking about this, if life's easy at the end of it, wouldn't it be scary to realize like you kind of floated through, like you didn't really,
Dive deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you didn't, and if you weren't tested, does it almost feel like you were gypped, like you kind of made it through, but it's like, oh no, it's over.
I didn't
really
get
feel
everything that I was supposed to.
Did I really go
Right.
through? Yeah.
Yeah. So we are so thankful for everything that we've gone through, even though I wouldn't wish infertility on my best friend. It was not easy. And I know people going through it now that I feel those feelings of hurt, my friends and cousins and people that are going through the sadness and the failures. And I can feel that pain and the loss. I mean, it was lonely there too. But I'm still so thankful that was the journey. That was what allowed us to get where we are now. I mean, if it wasn't for that, I don't think would have sought counseling for our marriage. Like, we were doing fine. We thought we were okay, just floating
No,
through.
we would have modeled what we saw.
Yeah.
What we had to model, and we would have, like I said,
But again, just
kind of level.
Yeah.
I just want to say that, this is the first time that we are hearing all of this, right? And I am speechless. And for all of our listeners out there, they are not getting paid an endorsement at all whatsoever. And, that's probably part of the reason why you guys really wanted to be on this podcast, to give this message out there.
Well, yeah, to just kind of, what you were saying earlier, Gene. I mean, this is something that I wouldn't tell anyone in my life. This isn't something I'm comfortable talking about or sharing, or I mean, these are some of the things that are my biggest disappointments and my most shameful portions of my life, like that I would not want to bear out. However, look at where we've come.
That's how we feel.
From doing that, and so
There's so much more life to live this way.
Yeah, and if that helps one person that's listening to this, it's worth any of the other, worth the discomfort in sharing that or whatever.
I think when we met you, you could have powered a house by how much anxiety you guys had. And I just see the freedom and the peace. Mm-hmm. What would you say to your pre-married selves?
For me, it would be like, follow your gut. I mean, just to know what is right in your soul and your heart and stay with it. Mm-hmm. Even if it's hard and if it's a constant battle, trust your gut. I mean, and it's something I feel like as a mother, I trust my gut.
Conscience. Yeah. Yeah,
and I hope I instill that in my children, because I don't know. At the end of the day, that's what matters the most, I think.
Yeah, listen to that inside of you, because it won't steer you wrong, even if it's like in my mind before all of this. Like my biggest fears, whatever they were, and it was mostly I'd lose what I had. It's like that's why I wasn't listening to myself, and so it's like no matter what. I mean, even if I did, I mean, it's like you can't live without listening to and following what your heart's telling you. It's not the right way to go. I mean, it's just so rewarding to
be on the other side.
Yeah, to actually listen to it and know that you've got the integrity that's true to yourself. You're being true to yourself.
So, last question. What is it your partner does that they love you?
You want me to go?
You can go first.
Well, this might not sound like it's not like a cute little thing, but it's like Michelle holds me to the standard that she sees me at. Like, she sees my potential and she holds me to that standard, and that is like, I mean, that's something that is just, that's true love. Like she brings out the best in me, and she holds me to that. And it's might be difficult at times, but I couldn't ask for more. I mean, that's amazing.
I would say Nick knows like when I'm like having like a lot of anxiety or stressed about a lot of things, and he really uses the tools that we've learned from counseling. Like he'll tell me, like he'll hold my heart and put his hand on my chest and say, take deep breaths. We need to meditate. Like he knows what I need and putting like my needs first. Like no matter what we're going through, like he will spend that time to give it to me at that moment to help me remember, like to ground myself and to get back to where we need to be to grow. And, he gives me, he's patient with me. And he's, our communication is so much better. I feel like he takes it as an opportunity to like talk, like what's wrong? Like, how can we heal? How can I hold you? He'll hold me in the morning when he wakes up, things that we just kind of were living in the home together, like as roommates, and he really, even when we're stressed now, he finds the tools and takes time to show me he's there no matter what. And that helps me know this was worth everything all along.
Nick and Michelle, this has been an honor for us to see all this growth and to see where you guys are at. And we want to really thank you so much for being on our podcast today.
Thanks for having us.
People have been sharing stories since the beginning of time to bond and heal and grow. We hope that by you guys sharing your story, it's enriched your lives and the lives of our listeners.
We want to wholeheartedly thank all of you for joining us today and for listening to Couple Synergy. Our passion is in helping couples and people have happy and healthy relationships, and this podcast gives us a fun way of bringing our knowledge and expertise to you, our listeners. For all of you listening, please subscribe to our podcast and please leave us a review. If you have any questions, comments, or topic suggestions, please email us at contact@couplesynergy.com. For more information about Couple Synergy and our programs such as Relationship 101, the Couples Weekend Intensive, which is coming up in September 9th through 12th, our online membership called Connections, and our premier program called Couple to Couple, look us up online at couplessynergy.com.
And if you know someone who could benefit from this episode, please download it and share it. And thank you for listening.
Until next time, synergize your life and synergize your love.
You have been listening to Couple Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. Couple Synergy was recorded, edited, and produced by Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. Voiceover and music entitled Breathe and Let Go was recorded and composed by Gina Gonzalez.